The key to a great player is understanding both when you should perform a play and when a play will likely result in a negative outcome. The first one is easy. Many people understand the basics of the game, allowing them to initiate pushes or holding back when it is necessary. It's when trying to go for more complex plays where you truly need to decipher whether or not you should initiate in certain positions. Hello, my name is Renox, and today I'll be your guide walking you through the top habits that you should force yourself to get rid of. Often, these habits cause you to die, and because they're so instinctive, you may not even realize why your play ended that badly. With that being said, let's get straight into the video.
And before we end this section, we wanted to hit you guys with our question of the day. Today's question is one that will likely get you all thinking. How much do you think people would pay for something as minimal as a 1% damage boost on the Phantom or Vandal? Although this will never be added to the game simply because it takes away from the competitive integrity, it's a fun concept to think about. Do you think people would pay hundreds or even thousands of dollars just to get their hands on such a minor competitive advantage? Let us know in the comments down below, and we'll be sure to read as many as we can. Alright guys, coming in at number 1 is flanking. Flanking, although useful in lower ranks especially, can often cause deaths if done at the wrong time. There are several things that you should look into when deciding to flank. Rather than simply flanking for the sake of being behind the enemy, you should take into consideration what agent you're playing before anything else. More specifically, you should analyze whether or not your agent would excel on its own. For instance, if you're a support agent like Sage, you probably wouldn't do too well holding your ground against enemies that would likely swarm you after you reveal your location. Furthermore, you would also likely be much more impactful alongside your teammates, simply because you could heal them up and then place down your barrier orb that could alter the outcome of a round. If you're playing a duelist, however, you could probably flank enemies much easier. You have many abilities that will help you when the enemies try to kill you, allowing you to escape after you've gotten 1 or 2 kills. Another thing that you should look at when deciding whether or not to flank is simply where your team is holding and how many teammates you have left. For example, if your team is holding back or they've lost players on a specific site, you shouldn't worry too much about flanking. Instead, you should take the fastest and safest route that will allow you to help your team, which in all cases is not to flank. You ultimately should only flank in ideal situations. If you're the right agent, your teammates haven't died, and you think that you will be able to get a kill, then you should flank. Other than that, play it safe and help your team by rotating normal. The second habit is one that many people tend to fall into due to frustration. What we're talking about here is not fulfilling your role as an agent. Many people, due to becoming annoyed with their teammates, often try to fill the role of an entry fragger, even if they are a smoke-based agent or a support agent. On the contrary, if the entry fragger is not helped after they peek several times in a row, they might start baiting their teammates for fear of being killed and not getting traded. Rather than doing this, however, you always want to stick to your role in the team. Even if you feel like some people aren't filling their roles, a bad entry fragger will still be better at entry fragging than a good smoke-based agent. Furthermore, if you choose to take someone else's role, not only are you nullifying their ability to perform, but you're also forcing your team to play without your capabilities. A Sage that wishes to entry frag will undoubtedly die more than a Sage that plays back. This will ultimately lead to a lack of heals throughout the game, arguably one of Sage's most important characteristics. If several players do this, however, the problem increases exponentially. Teams are very likely to fall apart until or even lose many more rounds in a row without understanding what they're doing wrong. The reason behind this is because the problem often occurs without players actively changing their playstyle. They passively decide to push or hold back, but by actively trying to fix this, however, you should be able to nullify the problem before it even occurs. The next mistake is one that directly plays off not being able to fulfill your role as an agent. More specifically, we're talking about refusing to play around the team, perhaps not from an ability standpoint, but more as the rounds advance. When players are defending A site, for instance, they will often try to watch the same area, simply due to an inkling that the enemy is there, either due to an ability or footsteps that the enemies have made. What this does is put you at a disadvantage, simply because if the enemies were to push from another area because they rotated or were initiating an A split push, you would be very vulnerable. In instances like these, you need to put your trust in your teammates. Even if you think that they might not win a duel, use them as a source of information if nothing else. In the worst case scenario, they die and you're able to play off their death by punishing, changing angles, or even using abilities. Another example in which people don't play off their team revolves around smokes. Many players often refuse to trust the fact that a smoke placed in a way that is meant to cover an angle is placed correctly. Because of this, they still check the smoke for any clearances. This can cause them to be vulnerable from behind and die simply because they didn't trust their teammates' ability to use a simple ability. Next up, we will be talking about a specific situation where many teams tend to fall apart, that's being the post-bomb plant. After the bomb has been planted, players tend to freak out, either pushing for a kill or holding generic angles rather than taking in their surroundings. In a 2v1, players will play two different angles simply because they want to. Instead, in situations like these especially, you want to play with your teammate. This will allow you to trade for them if they die or vice versa. On the contrary, if you're down players, you don't want to play together. Instead, separate from your team in order to cover as much ground as possible. I know this can seem a bit complicated, but let's put it in simple terms before we move on in order to ensure that everyone understands what they should be doing after the bomb plant. If you're up players, try to stick with one teammate. If you're down players, vary your angles as much as possible. Another mistake that is very common amongst entry fraggers is putting yourself before others when pushing. Specifically, we're talking about the idea that some entry fraggers, rather than accepting death as a means of taking sight, choose to bait their teammates, which in most instances would be much more valuable later in the round. Ideally, if you're playing an entry fragger, your sole purpose is to entry frag. You will usually die when pushes are initiated, and that's okay. Don't ever try to bait teammates in order to avoid this outcome. If you do take sight, however, you don't have to continue playing aggressively. Once your abilities have been used, your entry fragger status has faded. You no longer possess any advantage over your teammates to initiate fights. At this point, play in a passive manner that will keep you alive for an extended period of time. The next mistake is one that is crucial to understand if you want to climb past the gold and platinum ranks. This is rotating too early on defense. Many players tend to rotate once a teammate simply sees an enemy. This will leave you very vulnerable to fakes and, in higher ranks, will cause you to lose many rounds. There are two main instances in which you want to fully give up sight and commit to a rotate. The first is spotting spike. If the spike has been spotted, you can be confident that even if an enemy does push your sight, they will also have to rotate in order to assist their team. This isn't too hard to understand. The second reason is one that many people don't actually know. Even if your team spots 2 or 3 enemies, you shouldn't rotate unless they call out for help or begin to die. If your teammates are holding their ground, the enemy more often than not will probably rotate sites. In this scenario, you'll be ready to defend the site and deny a plant. If you were to rotate earlier, although you would still likely win, you would allow the enemies to get plant money, something that should be avoided if possible. Next up, we will be talking about misplaying eco rounds, or more specifically, going into eco rounds with an incorrect mindset. Many players tend to think that eco rounds are intended for teams to try winning with a lower spending budget. This is actually not the case though. In eco rounds, the goal is to lower the enemy's economy while allowing yours to raise. Because of this, rather than playing in a way that you would with rifles, you want to play in a way that will allow you to get trades. For instance, if you purchase a shorty, a very good eco round choice, and hold in a corner, you may want to teammate with a classic to set up a crossfire. Although the enemy pushing that area will likely allow them to trade one player for both of you, the single player you end up killing, likely having over 3,000 credits worth of purchases, will be worth much more than you two. In this instance, only 200 credits combined. When putting it this way, it is clear to see why you would want to initiate trades such as these, even if it will ultimately result in you losing the round. At the end of the day, if you get 3 or more kills before losing the round, that should be counted as a success in the realm of an eco. The last mistake we will present to you today is not truly understanding when it is ideal to chase kills. This mistake, although common, is very easily fixed. In order to understand if you should chase a kill, your first step is to look at the economy. If you're doing better than the enemies in this regard, chase kills. If not, then don't risk your money. It really is as simple as that. The reason for this is what most people don't understand, however. This is also fairly simple though. If you have more credits than the enemy, you will be hurt less by a hit to your economy. Because of this, it's worth the risk of losing a few credits in order to tank the enemy's economy even further. If you do die, you're likely to still be able to buy in the next round. If the enemy dies, however, they might be forced to initiate an eco, something that will likely result in you winning 2 rounds in a row. We understand that some of the mistakes in this video aren't the easiest to fix when it comes to actually playing the game. Because of this, we strongly recommend that you visit ProGuides.com. There, our pros can directly help you with any of your personal needs, helping you fix your faults in a quick and efficient manner through a variety of methods, including live sessions and our VOD review system. While live sessions will allow you to ask questions and have a hand-on experience, the VOD review system requires minimal hassle, giving you guys a way to improve depending on your individual wishes. With that being said, why don't you guys take a look at our new Call of Duty channel. Like this channel, we will be presenting you with all sorts of guides and tactics for the new Call of Duty in addition to some past ones. We hope that the information presented to you in this video allows you to realize that you too have some mistakes that can be fixed pretty easily. With that being said, however, don't face all of your in-game issues head-on. It may take some time for you to fully grasp some of the tactics that we have presented in this video. Rather than trying to fully grasp everything in a day or even a week, focus just on one mistake at a time. As you improve in each area, you'll find yourself performing better and better throughout your games, which ideally should lead to a rank increase in the future. Other than that, we wish you all good luck in your future games. This has been Renox. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you all in the next one.